we're in a paradigm shift moment in the world, particularly in Europe, and that means that the old world order, the old social contract that Britain certainly enjoyed in the welfare state is breaking up, and we're making a new one, and we're all cursed and lucky in Europe, I think. We're cursed because it is pretty bad in terms of the economic and social problems we have and political problems. But we're lucky because we're creating, in my view, a new social contract in Europe and in the UK, and I think that's going to spread around the world. And I'm going to explain a little bit about that new social contract we're building, in particular give you some examples from particularly Preston and Barcelona, where we've been working around what this new era is like and what new economics is like and what a new economic development field is like. We're a leading member and research organisation dedicated to progressive economics for people in place. We're 32 years old, my organisation. Our founding mothers and fathers put us in Manchester because they said, let's not put another bloody think tank in London. That's how we practice what we preach in terms of economic development. And as Angela alluded to, our aim is basically to change the political economy of the UK and anyone else that wants to listen. And particularly it's to achieve social justice, good local economies, effective public services for everyone, everywhere. And we're a small organisation, there's only 15 of us, but we're increasingly part of a global movement that's saying, hold on here, this economy isn't working for us. We need to make a better economy. Today, actually, I was seeing colleagues, we're in my organisation in Oslo today in Norway, and I'm in Bologna, and I'm in Auckland. I think I got the maybe better deal, though Oslo is a fantastic place. But, we believe in a thing called, we take economy from the Greek word oikonomos, which means keeper of the household, which is an intimate thing. We believe in economy as something that's close to our hearts. It's a social construct. The economy is not a given. The economy is something we as societies create, and we create it in the way that we want it to be, the way that serves us. And that, in a sense, is economic development. What we're doing here, folks, is creating an economy, which isn't something there that just ticks along as if it's a given. No, we construct an economy that works for us. And if there's anyone in Auckland who feel the economy is not working for them, then we're not doing it right. So that's what this is all about. We take economy as economos, keeper of the household. We think and do. That means we're kind of in that kind of space between thinking stuff, and it's about policy and how we make policy good practice, but also take practice and push that up to policy. So we're practical people. A wee bit about the context before I get to some of the examples. This is the feature of the global economy and the global market at the moment, if you like. The 10 richest men, and they're men, own the same amount of wealth as 50% of the poorest in the world. Now, people like Bill Gates and Buffett give their money away. You know, when they get billions, they start having philanthropic funds, and that's very good, and that's laudable, and that's a human empathy, and that's a good thing to do. But if you think about it, it's not really their money, because they made the money through the labour of everyone else. And so I would say that it shouldn't be up to them just to be philanthropic. I think we need to have a society that operates so that the wealth that they gain is kind of something that happens more a priori, rather than something that they feel is vainglorious men that they then start giving it away when they get the wealth. And there's the figures from New Zealand, which shocked me actually, from Oxfam. 20% of all wealth went to the richest 1% of Kiwis. The poorest 30% got barely 1%. It's not on this. You know, this is not an economy that works for us. This is an economy that works for the few. And I don't think that's an appropriate way to go. Economy has become something that's we need to fit within, and some people do very well. Come on here, let's construct something better. And then you've got things which is common. This is from the UK, but it's common across Europe. We've seen GDP growing, but then worklessness and poverty is getting worse. This is the disconnect. This is an existential crisis in economic development. We get the economy to grow, but hold on, it's disconnected to the people. So what's going wrong? This must get us angry. This is not right. Yeah, and it gives, as Patrick alluded to, this idea of trickle down. Well, it's a nonsense. It's exactly that. It's a trickle down, and we arguably need a torrent down of wealth. So there's deep, deep issues. And then one of the things we think about the economy is that the defining feature of an economy is wealth. Who owns it? Who influences it? Who benefits? And that's the defining feature of the economy. It's about wealth and the flows of that wealth. And the aim has to be to get an economy where wealth is more broadly held, with local roots, so income is recirculated within the system. Economic and social life are two sides of the same coin. And what's happened in Europe and the UK is that our old economic development policies are not working for all. They're not focused on wealth. We've got public austerity, which is causing a lot of pain. We've got aggressive gentrification in some parts of the cities, which is squeezing people out. Wealth seems to be extracted from places and not flourishing and flowing through a locality. So there's this thing growing, which is growing all the time exponentially, hence why we're in Bologna and Oslo today as well as here. It's the new economics that focuses on wealth and where it goes and who gets it and who benefits. And this movement, Barcelona, which we'll talk about in a minute, is a kind of poster child of this sort of movement. But it kind of says one key thing, is that we don't get growth and then redistribute it, as we did used to do. Let's go for growth, that's brilliant. And then we'll make sure the poor get some. We're actually saying, hold on here. The actual function of the economy needs to focus on wealth for all, not after the fact, during the fact of creating the economy. It's growth. How do you do growth? How do you do an economy so people are embedded in the process of it initially, rather than seeing something that's after the fact? And there's a local fight back, of course, across Europe that is taking this kind of idea sort of forward. And even people like Christine Lagarde, the director of the IMF and the World Bank, people in OECD are kind of saying, you know what, the economy is not working very well. And they've come up with this notion of inclusive growth, yeah, which kind of says we need growth to be more inclusive. Skeptics like me would say that the only reason Christine Lagarde is interested in inclusive growth is because, one, if there's too many poor people in the world, they don't buy the products that the global economy produces. Or she's worried that the poor people will start voting for weird political parties, like Trump or progressive left parties. I'm not sure the intentions of the major world institutions, economic institutions, are all that fully in tune with our new economics ideas. So let's turn to local wealth building, which is this movement which we're involved in, and I'll give some examples. We're working with a range of places for the last 12 years around this idea, how do we make wealth work for local people and for local places? And what's interesting about that range of places, it's not just the poorest places, it's some of the wealthiest places in England and the world too. And you look at London Borough Islington, which you'll know perhaps is an extraordinarily wealthy place, one of the wealthiest places in England. And there's still 1 in 4 children live in poverty in Islington. You've got land and property appreciation, which is going through the roof in terms of the prices of houses, office space. And so the question there is, how do we make sure that we protect bits of Islington for local people to live, bring up families and have a life? Yeah? That it doesn't just become anywhere, a global anywhere where global capital lands and extracts wealth. It's somewhere. It becomes a place of identity and meaning of Islington. And so the challenge there is in Islington is to capture some of that wealth, but also put bulwarks against that wealth that comes in that actually extracts the very meaning of place, because it creates anywhere, not somewhere. Other places there are more poorer localities, and there you're trying to think, how do we build up an economy so it's not just inward investment, something where everybody has a stake in that economy a priori. There's 4 elements to this local wealth building. 1, we're interested in the public dollar, the democratic dollar. If you think about it, like, I don't know, Auckland, I'm guessing, let's say 30% of all money, all wealth in Auckland is coming from the public sector, the public taxation, yeah? Local authorities, hospitals, transport, waste. A lot of us will be employed by public money, yeah? Pays of wages. I'm interested in that, or we're interested in that, because that's a little bit of the wealth, but it's different to private wealth, because it's democratic. It's our money, man. Yeah? So we should be thinking about that public dollar and how we extract the maximum benefit of that public dollar. How do we spend that money? Who gets, let's say this was a public institution, yeah? That chair, who provides that chair? Yeah? Is that chair being spent well, who we're buying our chairs from? Yeah? Are they a living wage employer? Are they environmentally sensitive? Are they employing local people? Are they employing people from the deprived parts of Auckland? These are fundamental questions we need to think about that public dollar, because that's our money. Yeah? So, we're interested in that. Across a range of organisations who receive public money, hospitals, police, local authorities, universities, colleges, housing associations, they all receive public money. We're interested in how they spend their money. Also, who do they employ? Do they employ local employees? Do they get a living wage? Have they got decent work? Is there good terms and conditions? This is what we've talked about, how they spend their resource. Thirdly, local wealth building is about land value, property and investments that benefit the local economy. Have we got the mechanisms we can capture some of that wealth, obviously through taxation, but other ways of capturing that wealth in land and property appreciation? That's why there's a massive growth in Europe around community land trusts, as in trying to build them in Islington. These are land and property that's owned by the community. So when there is appreciation, gentrification, it comes back to the community. It doesn't disappear to the Cayman Islands or in some plutocrat's pocket to buy a big super yacht. You follow me? People say, oh, Neil, you're a socialist, old socialist. I don't think I am a socialist. I'm a snowcialist. I believe in starting things for communities, building from people's hearts and growing it. Now, we call it socialism. I think it's snowcialism. It's building something that's for us. I'm not big in, I like big ideologies, but I'm not an old-fashioned socialist in any way. And fourthly is more local and democratic ownership of the economy. This is about ensuring we've got enlightened municipalities who are not just facilitating inward investment, they're having a stake in place. They're actually owning things and doing things. Municipal energy, for instance. Owning land and making sure they harness the wealth. It's also about local institutions. Local boards, perhaps, playing a role in terms of owning bits of the economy. It's about community organisations, about social enterprises, about co-ops, it's about mutuals. It's about the whole gamut of institutional form, which is looking after people as well as doing things in the economy. That's how you broaden and deepen wealth, by having many, many lochs, reservoirs, burns and eddies where wealth can be captured by and for local people. Institutional form is fundamentally important. And this is not just me talking. What you're seeing, and this is one instance of it, you're seeing across Europe and the world now this movement, rebel cities, fearless cities, this municipalist movement, which kind of saying, you know that old economy, it's not working for us, we're going to start thinking new things. Now, we're in the foothills of this. In no way this is mainstream yet, but nevertheless, there's a growing number of cities that's part of this municipalist movement, and I think Auckland should be part of it too. So what's this rebel cities? What's this thing all about? Well, it's kind of saying neoliberalism, which is actually the capture of democracy and the capture of the economy by plutocrats and global corporations. It's saying enough, economy's for us. And there's things happening like, and that's what we're doing in Bologna today, collaboration pacts and collaborative economy stuff, Bologna and Ghent. There's co-ops, social enterprises, SMEs, Barcelona, Cleveland, Jackson, and Preston, which we'll talk about in a minute. There's the remunicipalisation of public services, the community land trust. There's a whole series of small radical social innovations, radical social economic innovations that are happening everywhere. We did the work recently, we looked around 10 cities in the UK, going into these places and finding where the little beautiful gems of this new economics was. And all we've seen was just exponential growth. It's small in some instances, it's micro. The job of policymakers and policy geeks like me is to say, this is brilliant, let's amplify and scale it up. This is the future. This foreshadows the new economy. There's no shortage of energy. There's no shortage of people that get this stuff. What there is a shortage of is a policy platform that allows it to truly grow. Because some people, present company excluded, some policy leaders, some economic development people still think it's all about inward investment. It is about inward investment, not just that. It's about building the assets and the energy that's in people's hearts, doing stuff. Manchester's full of canals where we're based. And the other day, there's old canals. And there was this thing, this small hydroelectric scheme on this canal. Fantastic, little idea. Yeah? And they're going like, what a brilliant idea. The whole group that were around it knew their stuff. And I said, is the local state supporting you? Oh, it's hard to get in. It's like, this is the stuff. This is it, man. This is the new economics. Barcelona. This is a city not unlike Auckland. It's Greater Barcelona is about 5 million, but Barcelona itself is 1.8 million. It's an east-facing coastal city. It has an amazing amount of success, Olympic Games, a new waterfront. It's cooking on global economic gas. Yeah, it's a participatory city, as Auckland is, and there's an amazing thing going on there. And as the mayor of Barcelona said, if we're capable of imagining a different city, we have the power to create it. And what's happened in Barcelona? What happened in Barcelona was that land and property gentrification in the CBD is squeezing local people out. And the people are going, what's going on here? This is Barcelona. This is your city. Who are these? What is going on here? Yeah? Land and property appreciation for people can't get on the housing ladder. So you're from Barcelona, you're lower middle class, yeah? You can't buy a house. It's your city. What's going on? Housing, unemployment, high levels of youth unemployment, social and spatial polarisation, wealth extractors, wealth investors, running rampage, if you like, over the CBD, not a place for Barcelonistas. And so Barcelona Commons, a political party, a new one, took power in 2015, and that's Ada there, and they say, hold on, public leadership, we need to take control of this economic development model, we need to reclaim the city for local people, not just for tourists. We need to enhance the role of the commons. The commons is a very interesting notion, which I'll just take a little bit of time explaining. It's traditionally associated with physical resources, pastures, irrigation, fishing. Not fishing, no, fishing. These natural resources that are, if you like, each citizen has an equal interest in that sea out there. Yeah, the fish, they're for all. It's a common property. Yeah, nobody owns those fish. Yeah, they're for all. And each citizen has an equal interest in it. Now, the new account of the commons, the one that Barcelona's forging, is saying it's not just physical resources, it's all resources. Schools, waterfront, land, water in the city. They are the commons too. And how do we make sure that it's controlled by communities? So in Barcelona, the question is, waterfront, that's the commons. That's all of Aucklanders, all the New Zealanders' common property. And how do we create an economic model that ensures it does truly benefit all? And this comes from a legal scholar, Youre at Harvard, the economist Michael Bowman's trying to take this extension of the notion of the commons into the economic sphere to deepen citizens' ownership. And that's what Barcelona is seeking to do. It's a brave, amazing thing they're trying, an experiment. And if it works, wow. They've got things like social procurement guides, they've got citizens' platforms, they've got a whole range of stuff going on. An explosion of activism, cooperatives, social entrepreneurship. This idea of Barcelona seeking to fine electricity companies that cut off local supply to local people because electricity is a common. The idea that you can, a referendum to look remunicipalising of the city's water company. And then you've got Barcelona Activa, which is like a TEED, in the sense it's got different wings to it. It's the economic development arm for Barcelona. But you know what else it's got apart from the traditional things you'd expect? It's got a radical social innovation element. And it's identified 30,000 instances of social innovation across Greater Barcelona. Little energy, little urban food growing. And it's saying we need to create platforms to allow all that to grow, because that's of equal importance as inward investment. Inward investment's not, global economy is fine, but we also need this idea that we build on that local innovation. That's Barcelona. Preston, 6-year journey. The thing that happened in Preston was, it's a poorish place in Lancashire, and what happened in Preston? In 2008 and 9, it had a traditional economic development plan, a master plan for a thing called Tithe Barn. It was a development site. GFC came along. Problems. Nobody wanted to go there. Yeah, so the investment kind of started to halt. And then the city then thought, what are we going to do now with economic development? If we can't get Tithe Barn, which was the great, I don't know, you know, these kind of things you see as perspectives, it was something like 5 million jobs or something, you know, you think, yeah, the investment's going to come, hey, 5 million jobs, boomtown, Preston's going to be like Las Vegas, I don't know, whatever. Didn't happen. So then they thought, what are we going to do? And then they thought they need to look inside themselves and think what they've got, the wealth that they've got, and what they can do around that. Now, Preston City Council are members of CLES, and the chief executive of Preston said, this stuff you're going on about, you know, this local wealth building, I know you've been doing it a while, could you think what we could do in Preston? So we met in the pub with, most things could happen in the pub in my view, we met in the pub with the cabinet member, the elected politicians, and they gave us the stuff and they started this work with them. So what's been happening over the last 6 years is that they say, the whole thing about extractive wealth, the whole thing about what wealth we've got, what can we do? I'll talk about the spend and anchor institutions work in a minute. They're setting up a bank, Lancashire Bank. They're looking at local pension funds and how they use that, not to buy property in Dubai or nuclear warheads or fags, but to invest in Preston. Yeah? Use the local municipal pension funds to invest in Preston. Local food network, a food network that kind of uses available urban land to fit into the supply chain of local institutions. Co-ops and a local energy company in development. They're trying to create a new economic ecosystem that makes sure wealth sticks within Preston. And on the bit about anchor institutions, there's 7 anchors in Preston we work with. 2 local authorities, Preston City Council, Lancashire County Council, 2 colleges, 1 university, 1 housing association, and the police. Collectively, they have £750 million worth of spend. And we thought, through progressive procurement, through looking at supply chains, can we repatriate some of that £750 million to the local economy? Now, the local really matters. Small firms in the UK generate 58% more benefit to local economies than larger firms because they employ local people and they're more likely to have local supply chains. So if you get a local chair manufacturer, yeah, they're more likely to employ local people, and where they get the wood and the plastic from are more likely to be local as well. So the local is a nice focus. If you could get more local suppliers of that £750 million, you could see a social dividend. Here's I think this is a real side. I rubbed it off the net. Sorry for not sourcing it. When you buy from a small business, you're helping a CEO. You're not helping a CEO buy a 3rd holiday home. You're helping a little girl get dance lessons, a little boy's team jersey, and his mum and dad put food on the table. This idea that you spend local has this ripple, virtuous economic social ripple effect within a local place. And it's not old, this is from the local authority in South Shields from 1853. And it's for the local authority tendering for some police 14, it's to supply the local constable with 14 top hats, 14 pairs of trousers and 14 coats. And at the bottom it says, the lowest tender is not necessarily accepted. Yeah? Because it's saying there's other wider benefits to be had in South Shields of finding a local supplier of those garments. So here's the starting point in Preston. Preston's the yellow dot, yeah, in the bottom right. So this is what the situation was. £750 million spent across those 7 anchors in 2012-13. 5% was spent in Preston and 39% in Lancashire. Then we did a lot of things, because working with potential suppliers, working with procurement, trying to convince this idea that we extend the range of supply of that £750 million. And here's the figures last year. 18% within Preston City Council and 80% within Lancashire. That's up £70 million of spend to Preston and £200 million to Lancashire. And that's just not, that's money, isn't it? But what you're talking about here is small businesses, local co-ops, and the ripple effect. We reckon it's about 1,500 jobs, and we've recently seen a change in, Preston was in the bottom 20% most deprived areas in England. It's now went above that. It's went up the prosperity index, if you like, or the deprivation indices. I'm not saying it's all attributed to this, but nevertheless it's made a difference. So this is about repatriation wealth. It's about creating a new economic ecosystem. It's about ensuring that that public dollar works for us. And of course, we've still got the Lancashire Bank, we've still got the municipal energy, we've still got the growth of more co-ops to yet to work through. Finally then, all this work is growing massively in the UK, and the UK Labour Party has just set up a community wealth building unit, which is a unit to look into this, and how it can be universalised if they're in opposition at the moment, if they were to come in power, and CLES is a founding member of that. There is a new generation of younger people, of older people, of middle-aged people, who are increasingly questioning the wealth and the economic approach we have. There is a lot being done. It's all around us. This city is full of amazing energy. We need to capture that, I think. And I think, as a global city, Auckland has a chance to join this movement. There is a progressive moment, an era, and a progressive city like Auckland should be joining it. You may not have the economic travails that is around in Europe. You may not have the political travails that are around Europe. But certainly, as an early adopter from the Southern Hemisphere, I think it'd be a good move. And I think you can become new municipalists too. Come on, come into the family, come and join us all. And finally, I was reading a great book last night, Ursula Le Guin, a science fiction writer, and I looked for some quote, and she said this: "We live in capitalism. The power seems inescapable. Oh, we can't change it. But so did the divine right of kings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings." And I say the economy and how it's not working for us needs to be resisted, and we have the power to make it any way we want.